lovers, welcome back to my channel. Today's story is a fantastic one. I bet you will love it. Today we're going to talk about the novel Far from the Madden House. The novel is written by Thomas Hardy in the year 1874. The story is about the complicated relationship between a young, wealthy, beautiful lady known as Bathsheba and a young shepherd known as Gabriel Oak. The story is set in a fictional setting called Wessex. Gabriel Oak, a young local farmer, was on his way for his daily duties on a normal day. He bumped into this beautiful lady, Bathsheba. Her breathtaking beauty struck the young shepherd such that everything in his body stood still in attention, no movement. He tried to move his legs, but his legs refused to move in honor of the beauty that was standing right before him. So he had no choice other than to admire and to know this lady that has swept him off his feet. You know, that kind of a thing. So he greeted, "My dear lady, how are you? What's your name?" All those kind of things. He asked for a contact number and they exchanged contact number and like that. And not that he bumped into her just once. All the time, he kept bumping into Bathsheba. So they became friends. And, that continued. Gabriel owned a farm. He had a little saving. But then he had a loan. And it was this loan that he used to start up this farm. And also stocked his farm with the loan that he had. So how he managed to meet this beautiful girl, a woman and her niece, which happens to be Bathsheba. They moved into this local. And then she was 8 years older than Gabriel. So she was that beautiful that almost everyone noticed her beauty. So she was on her way. And then Gabriel spotted her. Initially, Bathsheba was not interested in Gabriel. But there was a day Gabriel kept bumping into her. There was a day she saved Gabriel from a fire incident. It happened that Gabriel fell asleep and could have suffocated in that fire incident. But she saved Gabriel from this fire incident. So through this, both of them started liking each other. She fell in love with him. He also fell in love with her. And they loved each other. In Victorian era, you cannot just date a girl. You have to go through somebody. Either the person, like in this case, Gabriel had to go and tell the aunt to tell her that he wants to have Bathsheba. And the auntie said, unfortunately, that young lady had so many suitors. And Gabriel accepted it. They fell in love to the extent that there was a time that Gabriel proposed to marry her. She refused. She said that she loves her freedom more than she loves their relationship. So fast forward, days later, Bathsheba moved out of this neighborhood, some miles away from where Gabriel lived. Both of them moved on, and life went on. Both of them, she had moved on with her life, whereas Gabriel had also moved on with his life. It happened that Gabriel bought a novice sheepdog who drove his goats, his sheep, into a hole. And that made him to lose everything. He lost the sheep and he could not afford money to pay his rent because he has lost what brings money to him. So he managed to pay everything, like the lease and everything, but it left him broke. So he could not continue with his farming, the meager farming that he is managing. When he became broke, he went to a town called Casterbridge to look for a job there. He did not find one. He decided to head to another place called Shortford. That place is about 10 miles away from Weatherbury, where Bathsheba lived. So on his way to Shortford to still looking for job, he noticed a farm on fire. People were standing by looking. He came in and led the standby to go and put off the fire. So you know what happened? The owner of this farm heard that a young man came in and helped them to put out this fire. The owner now decided to come and reward this person. The owner was covering her face. When the owner of the farm came to reward him, he asked, then he didn't know. He asked the owner, "Do you need a shepherd to head your flocks?" And then Bathsheba uncovered herself. And then they realized that, oh, they have come to meet each other again. Bathsheba was not feeling comfortable to employ him. But then she reluctantly accepted and said, okay, I will offer you the job. Life has now turned around. He used to be the one who had a little income, a little money. But now Bathsheba is now wealthy. When Bathsheba moved away from the place she used to live before, when she moved out of the neighborhood where Gabriel used to live, she went to her uncle who to inherit the wealth, the farm of her uncle. Her uncle was very wealthy, had a large farm, and so she inherited it. And now she is now wealthy. That was why from the beginning I introduced her as a wealthy, beautiful, breathtaking lady, Okay, so she has inherited her uncle's wealth, farm, and she is wealthy at this point. And then it has turned out that Gabriel was going to look for work, but branched. That is why it is good for us to do good all the time. So because of that, Bathsheba offered him a job in her farm. By then, Bathsheba had already gained another admirer. There was this guy named William Boldwood. He was a prosperous farmer and he was about 40 years old. Not that Bathsheba wanted him. Bathsheba, as I said earlier, that she was her beauty was breathtaking. And then her beauty kind of got into her that, how beautiful ladies, they want people to admire them, people to notice their beauty. But it happened that William Boldwood did not even was not paying attention to her beauty. And again, how some men also are, that they secretly admire you, but when they see you, they they don't show it. So what happened on a Valentine's Day, how both of them, I'm now telling you how William Boldwood and Bathsheba, how they came together. So on a Valentine's Day, Bathsheba decided to play a game on William Boldwood. She wrote a Valentine card to William, asking him, "Will you marry me?" It was a joke. He just wanted to play games on William Boldwood. He said because, why she did it? She said that William Boldwood had refused to notice her beauty. So she was going to deal with him. Not knowing that Williams, on the other hand, had been secretly admiring her. So she wrote that on the Valentine card and said, "Will you marry me?" William now took it serious because it has been in his mind, but he didn't know how to approach this beauty. So William took it so serious and said, "Oh my God, something I have been looking for is right in the palm of my hand." So William said, "Oh, my undying love for you, I'm going to marry you. I will fall on the floor just to say yes. This is what has been in my mind." At this point, instead of Bathsheba to say, "I was joking," Bathsheba continued with the joke. He was just playing with the guy's mind. William did not waste time. He quickly proposed to her, thinking that she was serious about what she wrote. William also was seen as the most eligible bachelor in that district, in the neighborhood. Despite not loving him, she toys with the idea of accepting to marry him. Can you imagine? Although she did not give him a definite answer. She just said, okay, yes, I will marry you, but she kind of was playing games on him. So Gabriel, because Gabriel lived with them in the farm, so Gabriel noticed that. And Gabriel talked to her and said, why are you playing with this guy's emotion? She became angry and said, I am the boss here. Because of that, she sacked Gabriel. After some times, Bathsheba's goats started dying. They began dying because of bloating. She knew that it was only Gabriel who, because Gabriel is experienced. So there was nothing she could do. She humbled herself. Initially, she didn't want to go and beg. But because if she did not go and beg him to come back, she will lose most of her goods. She decided to suppress her pride and then go to beg him to come back, to please come back to work in the farm. And that was again how Gabriel came back to her life. Still, they were not doing anything because already her attention was in another, not even the William, it's another person. Suddenly, a man named Sergeant Francis Troy, fondly called Frank, returned back to his native Weatherbury land. He had been far away as a sergeant. Maybe he was in a place where he was posted, but now he had finally come back to Weatherbury, and that's where he came from, and that's his native place. So one night he had an affair with Bathsheba. Although Bathsheba did not like him initially, but after the one night affair with this sergeant, her dislike turned to infatuation. She started having infatuation about Sergeant Troy. Remember that she really didn't like Williams. She only wanted to pay him back for not noticing her beauty. So when this Troy showed up, she decided to begin having an affair with Troy. That both of them went to a different place to get married secretly. When William noticed that her attention was on Troy, William was angry at Troy. He confronted Troy. He offered Troy a bribe. He wanted to pay Troy. He gave Troy a bribe and telling him to leave Bathsheba for him. Now the men are fighting because of Bathsheba. That's to tell you the kind of beauty that she possessed, that she had. So Troy tried to pretend as if he was accepting the bribe. Only all of a sudden he said, we are already married. You know, William was humiliated and vowed to revenge. The marriage between Troy and Bathsheba, it was unhappy because Troy was a heavy drinker. He kept drinking and playing, gambling. He was not interested in the farm or being a husband. And that made Bathsheba frustrated. Again, Bathsheba had a maid called Fanny. Troy got this maid pregnant. Bathsheba didn't know initially. Fanny ran away from Bathsheba when she became pregnant. On her way, she met Gabriel. Gabriel gave her money. I think the money she used to run away, or she used to help herself. Fanny now went to meet Troy, because it was Troy who impregnated her, to beg him to marry her. Troy accepted to marry her, but kind of treats her somehow. When he sees other people in the neighborhood, other men, he doesn't treat her well as somebody that he wanted to marry. You know, at a point, as the event continued, Fanny died with the pregnancy. The child also died. Later, Bathsheba got to know that it was Troy, her husband, who impregnated Fanny. Everything happened. She buried her and they continued. It was only when Fanny died that Troy now realized what he had done to this poor servant of Bathsheba. The death affected him so much that he decided to go for a swim. As he went there, he was swept away, to the extent that they thought he has died, because he stayed for a long time. They couldn't see him again. Because of this thing that has happened, the wealthy William came back to propose to Bathsheba. Bathsheba agreed to marry him, but in 6 years. At least if 6 years had passed and she did not hear from Troy, she will now believe that truly Troy is no more. Just as Boldwood was counting days, this woman had told him that in 6 years we are going to get married. 1 year had passed and then he is counting. 6 years is nothing. Just like Joseph in the Bible, where he worked for years just to marry the love of his life. William Boldwood was counting days. He was counting years, from years to months, from months to days, just, waiting to get this beauty of this breathtaking beauty into his life. Just as he was doing that, Troy reappeared from nowhere. And you know what made Troy to come back? He was now cashless. He had used up everything that he had. He remembered that when he was with Bathsheba, he used to have anything he wanted. So why not go back and reclaim what belonged? Already they were married. So when Bathsheba also was expecting him, like after 6 years, she would know that Troy was no more. But to their surprise, Troy reappeared. He came back on Christmas Eve when they were having a party at William's place. And when he came, he went to Bathsheba. And Bathsheba was shocked, fell back. He ordered Bathsheba to follow him. When Bathsheba refused, he forcefully held her hand and was trying to pull her. So at that point, Williams could no longer take it. He had had enough of this Troy. The Troy that came from nowhere and took the person he had been wanting to marry away, and God so kind, the water swept him away, and they all thought he was dead. And now he is just counting time for him to get finally united with the love of his life, only for this person to show up again. Already he had humiliated him once. He would not want this humiliation anymore. So he decided to go inside with that. And already he had planned revenge. Remember, he went inside and picked up his barrel and then came and, he shot at Troy. And Troy was dead. He was ready to end it all there. He was not just to shoot Troy. He shot at Troy and then he pointed at himself, but he failed because people held him, because he knew it was going to be over. But people stopped him from doing that. He did not stop there. As a murderer, what happens? He had to go to jail. So he was sentenced to life imprisonment. So Bathsheba buried her husband. At this time, guess what? They said the patient dog eats the fattest bone. Everything that has happened, someone was just by the corner watching, by the side watching, being patient, not rushing, also accepting everything that was thrown at him. During this time that Bathsheba was passing through this pain, the only person she was relying on was the person she also admitted. She admits that this person is indeed her true one and only true friend. And that is the person of Gabriel. She relied on him for everything. And Gabriel also gave his shoulder for him to rely on. At a point, Gabriel decided to quit and said, I don't want to work for you again. I want to leave this town. Then one night, Bathsheba went to see him in his cottage to ask why he had decided to leave. And Gabriel said, because people are rumoring, people are saying that I am here because I want to marry you. I had plans to marry you. And she dismissed that. She said, no, that's absurd for people to think of that. But on the process, he now asked again, will you marry me? Without any hesitation, she willingly accepted. And they got married 1 year after the death of Troy. And they lived happily ever after. What a story. Thank you for listening to me. I hope, my book lovers, you love this book. Please comment on any book that you want us to talk about, or any film at all, anything at all, any story that you want us to discuss on this channel. Please let me know. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the characters and the theme of the novel.